Time for another tutorial, guys. Let's make a horn. Maybe not this one. There's a cow talking to me. Okay, so we are not going to make a New Year horn, but we are going to make a cow blowing horn, so to speak, made out of a cow horn. Let's jump right into this first tutorial of the year. Now, the things you're going to need for this tutorial, or build, so to speak, it's not really that complicated. You're going to need a cow horn, and then you're going to possibly need a New Year horn. Now, you could use the New Year horn, you could not use the, I don't know. I'm trying, I couldn't really make these work in the past, so I'm trying to implement the New Year horn in it somehow. And let's see if it works or not. Now, the cow horn I got was kind of hollow already on the inside. I just went down to the local leather shop called Leatheriet here in Aarhus, which have all these different leather materials. They also have cow horns, which are untreated on the outside, but they are hollowed out, which is really nice because I didn't want to deal with the hollowing out process. I just wanted a horn. So I got a horn that was relatively thick, and because it's untreated on the outside, it's relatively cheap for its size. Now, I wouldn't recommend buying the drinking horns that you can get out on medieval fairs and markets like that, for 3 reasons. First of all, they're polished and really nice already, and they're meant for drinking. Second of all, they're kind of expensive compared to what you're getting. Thirdly, it's a drinking horn. It's not really made for this. And in some cases, if you're really unlucky, they might be treated, or if you're lucky or unlucky, either way, they might be treated with wax on the inside, and you don't really want that because that's mainly if you're like drinking water and stuff like that. So not really that important. Also, because it's already polished and really nice, you can't really cut it up and make the right blowing hole, if that's what it's called. I don't really know, I'm not a musician. It's the first time me making one of these things. But another thing is, because it's polished, it's also kind of thin already. Anyway, they are also kind of tiny compared to normal drinking horns, or the ones you make yourself if you get them unpolished. Anyway, way off topic, back to this topic of the blowing horn. Now, the really important things that you're going to need for this is actually the tools. And the main tool you're going to use is the Dremel. Now, before I started marking or cutting anything down, I needed to polish it down and make the surface sort of smooth. So I took my polishing bit on my Dremel, or sanding bit, or whatever you call it, and just started to sand it down. Now, you could also do this with a knife, but the Dremel is a little faster. You just keep doing this. You can do it on the far side, or you can do it like on the short side around. Just be sure that you don't leave too deep markings in the horn, because it's gonna be very visible. You are gonna carve in it later, but you don't want something to look like you went over with a machine. You want it to look sort of organic, so go with the lines, or at least go over it as the last thing with the lines. So take a wet sponge and remove all the dust. Or actually, you're probably going to do that before you start removing the first bit, because there's going to be a lot of dust, which is also why you're going to need a very good mask. And I'm not talking these masks. Now, I'm not talking painter's mask. Now, if you don't have anything else than this, I would really recommend you go and buy some other type of mask. Now, you could probably use this, but honestly, with the amount of dust that came out of my horn, I would not recommend that you even start doing this with such a mask. You should have something that protects the entire face, or at least your nose and mouth, and possibly also something to protect the eyes. Don't be stupid at me. I didn't have any eye protection, and I probably had half a cow horn sitting around my eyes at some point. By the way, this is going to smell a lot like burnt nails or burnt hair, so do it outside, and be sure to have some old working clothes on, because again, it's going to be extremely dusty. Wear a mask, is going to be extremely dusty, and it smells. And hopefully also wear some eye protection. Don't be stupid like me. Now, once you have done this a couple of times, sanded it down, made it really nice, it's time to cut it open. Now, basically what I did was I figured out where I kind of wanted it, because I wanted the New Year horn to go in the end, and it kind of have like a round piece that, and figured out, okay, it's going to be around here. And then I pretty much just took a handsaw and just sawed it over. Now one thing you want to do is you want to cut the horn where it's still massive the whole way through. It should be horn the whole way through, not hollow on the inside. Because if you cut it where it's hollow, it's going to be a little more unstable. And you also want to drill afterwards, so you can kind of get air and actually have a blowing horn. So I cut the tip off with a saw down there, and I'm going to save the end of it, the little pointy tip, because you can use that for making something like buttons or other stuff. And now I almost have my horn. I just need to make a hole in the end with my drill, and it's kind of important that you make the hole into the hollow area of it and don't go out on the backside. So you don't want a horn that carves around too much. That way, if it carves too much, you can't really be sure that it's going to be hollow. It's that you can get a drill that's long enough to reach the hollow area. As you can see, I needed my drill to go all the way in to the horn before it reached the hollow area. So it's actually like this much drilling going on before it actually gets into the real hollow part of the horn. Now the drilling is done. What I'm going to do now is change the top part of my Dremel into this little round sanding piece, and then I'm basically just going to sand it a little hollow. I'm just going to hollow it out just a bit, like a ½ centimeter or something like that, or between a half and a whole centimeter. It's not really that important, just going to go in a bit. And then before we start carving in it with the Dremel, I'm going to take my New Year horn and see if I can get any sound out of it. Now it's just time to test it out. So I'm going to take this, the top part, I'm going to throw this over there. I'm going to take this, which makes this annoying sound. And I've tested it out, so it should fit in here. Let's try and do a test horn. Okay, so no sound. Okay, so maybe the hole isn't large enough, so I'm gonna try and make the hole larger. So I made the hole a little larger with a bigger drill. And I also made it a little deeper with this. So now I'm gonna try again with this. Nothing. I'm gonna do some research on how this really works. Now the way you do it is that you press your lips together and make this sort of M sound, like air coming out. Whoops. Yeah, I'm gonna scrap the idea of using the New Year horn. Don't do that, don't use it. Anyway, it's probably a better idea because I think it sounded pretty odd anyway. A lot of my friends have also pointed out that it's not really the most intimidating thing to hear, and it's going to sound really weird. One of the reasons I wanted to use it because I didn't really know how to produce any sound out of the horn without it. And before you say, oh, it's because it's not airtight or anything, I did try to hot glue it inside, and I also tried to drill the hole a little bigger. But in fear of losing this tone of the horn that I accidentally created, I don't want to drill the hole in the horn too big. However, you could probably use it if you drilled the hole into the horn so large that the New Year horn could pop in from the other side, or actually just fit precisely into the hole. But it will still sound like a New Year horn when you were using it. So before we go over to the whole carving process, I actually did a little research on the whole carving a horn and actually making a sound out of it. But what you want is actually the mouthpiece to be about 2 inches, 1 inch, 1.5. And I think mine is probably a little too small, but I can still create sort of a sound out of it, so it's good enough for me. Now, the pattern on the horns was supposed to be a little fantasy-based, so something with 2 dragons and some flames, I was thinking. Some dragons, something a little... I can get a little loose with, doesn't have to be a specific shape. That's pretty much what I went with. So what I did was I took my pencil and I just kind of marked out on it where I wanted my shapes to be, how it was supposed to tangle into one another, the flames, the figures, everything. And I just kind of worked out, and I played a little around with the colors. It was a little lighter at the whiter part and really dark at the bottom, so I kind of played a little with the colors there. Don't really know if I succeeded, but yeah, it's a thing to keep in mind. Now I could use my eraser to remove pencil marks from the horn if I had something overlapping or something I didn't really want to be there, or I wanted to change anything. But I found that using a knife, you could use that to sort of scratch the pencil marks away if you made a mistake or something that you didn't want to get in to the pattern, or you made a wrong, what's called streak. Now, day after again, I went outside and I changed my drilling bit into this little star shape that's really good for drilling shapes or letters or something into wood. And as it turns out, it's also really good for when you are carving in horn. Okay, so the first thing I did was to kind of mark out with the new drilling bits in the horn to mark where all the edges were of my design, because all the pencil marks were kind of fading away over time, and every time I was wiping it with a wet sponge to get all the dust off, it would lose a little more. So be careful when you do that, and just be sure to mark it out really quickly. And one thing to note here is also, if you do it this way, you can actually still go in and change your design before you start carving really deep into the horn. Now, I was okay with my pattern on the horn, so I just continued on and I started drilling a little deeper, making a little deeper edge, because again, it was still pretty hard to see. Now at the top part of the horn, where it's really wide, I wouldn't really go that deep because the layers or the horn was really thin, so I wouldn't really go that deep into the horn, but I'll still go around and mark everything out and go a little bit it, keeping in mind not to go through the entire horn. Now something I found out is that if you just drill straight down and go around, it's gonna create these flushed or what's it called, destroyed edges of the horn, and it's just gonna go out to all sides, which is really irritating because it's gonna look really bad. So what you want to do is you actually want to drill at an angle, so you're kind of making a smooth edge each time you go around. And once you have gone around one way, you want to drill the other way. That way you get the most smooth edge possible. Now once all the parts, all the lines have been really going down into the horn where I want it to be, I changed my drilling bit out again into the round sanding stone thingy-majig. And with that I could take up a lot more of the horn at a time at some of the bigger areas and create a lot more easier transition from some of the higher points to some of the lower points. I actually sanded off a lot of the horn where it's kind of white but there's still some dark underneath, and that way sort of lifting up some of the dragon or sea serpent design, because it turned out to look more like a sea serpent than actually a real dragon, but hey, still looked okay, pretty damn cool. So with all of this done, I just drilled a quick hole in the top so I could attach a leather string. Now once you are done with everything here and it looks really nice, you have removed all the dust, you're happy with it, happy with your carved design as it is, and it looks really freaking beautiful, you're going to make it even more beautiful. And if you're like me, you're probably frozen a little to the ground and your knees can't really stretch because it's kind of cold outside. But once you go inside, you want to wash the horn, remove all dust from it, because there's a lot of dust on the inside and you want all of that dust to go out. So wash it with soap and everything and just dry it off. It's going to look perhaps not as great, because when it's dried out, it kind of loses a lot of its shine. But that's what we're going to fix now, because the next thing you're going to do is take some oil. Now it doesn't really matter what type of oil it is, or at least that's what I have gathered. So what I'm going to use is just use regular sunflower oil, or yeah, oil you use for making food. Good thing about this is that it's a little cheaper. Bad thing is it's probably gonna smell a little like, I don't know, French fries or something. No, it's still better than burnt nails and hair. So you just wanna, it's dried out from water, you want to give it a really lot of oil. You want to sort of massage it into the entire horn and give it this really nice shine. It's going to be really sticky and pretty oily, but that's okay because you want it to sort of suck in all of these natural oils. That way it can sort of regain some of its shininess. If this were a drinking horn, you would cover it with wax on the inside, or you could cover it with wax on the inside. Because it's not a drinking horn, I'm not going to do that. Now I put a lot of oil on mine and left it out overnight, or left it in the kitchen overnight. Now I could give it more. I'm probably going to give it a second layer, but here it is, basically. I put a leather strap into it so I could hang it in my belt. And you do not, it's very important that you do not want to create a hole down at the bottom, because it can kind of screw up the sound of the horn. Instead, what you want to do is kind of have a leather strap attached to the button, or maybe do something with glue down here. Now I did mine pretty simple. I don't know if I'm going to continue with this. I'm probably going to make something a little different, or maybe I'm just going to continue with this, because this is also, it needs to be quick to get out and blow in, and it don't need to have a lot of things hanging from it, because that way it would be really unhandy, like really not a handy thing to carry around. So now the only thing we need to do is basically just blow the horn. As you can see, very useful if you want to go on a hunting party or just want to call in the troops. Now, be sure to leave a like down there if you like this video, and subscribe if you want more LARP content like this one. The next tutorials are probably going to be inside, because I was freezing my fingers and my ass off on this project. However, it turned out quite nicely for the first time I've ever carved in horn, or dremeled in horn to be more specific. Let's see if I can do this in one go. Okay, I'm going to try and attempt this again, and until then, I'm going to see you LARPers later. Bye.